It's being live streamed. Okay, Mnandi.
Okay, and you're listening to Hashem's podcast brought to you by Anzig Institute. Tonight we have the pleasure and honor to have with us Hayat Selim, all the way from London town. Now, Hayat Selim is a Cairo born, London based singer, songwriter, composer, and multimedia artist whose crossover work bridges cinematic orchestration with global musical traditions and electronic music. Now, if I was to sit here and read the whole bio, we'd be here for the next 20 minutes, but I'll quickly give you a summary. So she has a master's in composition at the Royal College of Music, singing on Age of Empires recently, Star Trek, Khan, Harry Potter, Magic Awakened composition, and also she sang recently at the Gem, or her music has been presented at the Gem in Egypt. She has also written the music for Habibi Baba Boom. There's a lot more to discuss, so welcome to the episode of the podcast, Hayat.
Hi, Mo. Nice to see you after so long
Yes,
via screen, and thanks for having me on the
it's
podcast.
been a long time.
A
So
long time.
your website, Hayat Salim's website, is huge. The bio is really big. So let's begin by a little bit about your history, how you began, and where you are now. The bio is so big, so perhaps you can talk us through it.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. So I lived in Egypt until 8 years ago. And during that time, like obviously we'll talk about the musical journey, I guess. So I went to a German school in Egypt, and it really put a lot of stress on classical music, Western music generally. So I would say my path with music started really in choirs, in school choirs, and I think this is where my singing journey began. I started learning the piano. I was pretty much on and off with it with practice, but I would see it more as an instrument of accompaniment or composition now. And during high school time, this is when I started to like take part in school talent shows and actually daring to be a soloist. My voice was very different at the time, though. Um, and then I didn't really know what I wanted to do in my undergrad. Like I had a very technical, I was very enthusiastic and very passionate about tech and computers and that time like early 2000s, obviously it was still like a big thing. And So I decided to go for an undergrad in engineering. So I studied at the German University in Cairo. The course was called Digital Media Engineering and Technology. It was less creative than it sounds. It was pretty much very technical, very computer science based. And during that time, we started a music ensemble in the German university, and it's still ongoing until now. That was 2010. And from there, we were like a bunch of people studying other things, coming together and sharing our passion for music and being inspired by one another. So, actually, quite a few of us ended up getting their degrees, yes, but then making a complete switch of careers into music. After graduation, I worked a little bit in software, less than a year, I would say. And then it's in 2015 where I took the decision to completely switch over to music. And during my time in my undergrad, I was taking private studies in composition, in singing. I've done classical singing with Dr. Niveen Aluba. I've done pop singing with Sharif Dab, merging these two passions together. And it was a time when I wasn't so sure, will singing be the career or will composition be the career? And then I lost my voice for around 7 months, around 2014. And I think that was the point in my life where thought to myself that composition might be a more secure path, especially film composition. Um, and upon graduation, no, after leaving the software job, I did want to start going into the Egyptian film industry. But it was very hard to climb the ladder there as someone starting off as a woman, especially. So I just thought to dig up the game music industry, and I came across a very nice bunch of people at the Information Technology Institute in 6 October, and they were showcasing the games they've been working on during their studies. And there were other companies like 5D Agency for VR, a lot of showcases there. And I started presenting myself as a potential game composer, and probably nobody at that event had initiated that. So I started actually getting my first gigs through these conventions, and they were already my first like professional gigs. I never stopped performing to the side when I had my voice back. So I was part of Fabrica for music theater, and that got me to perform around different parts in Cairo. I had a few gigs with my own music, and I joined Cairo Celebration Choir because I wanted choir to continue being part of my life. And I've worked in Egypt for around 2 years, 2 years before I got the scholarship to the Royal College of Music to pursue a master's in film composition.
I was gonna ask you. So, what is the music scene like in Egypt? The creative scene for people in my Western audience don't know much about this region. So, what was the music scene or the creative scene like in Egypt when you were here?
I would say, to be honest, that I've touched very briefly on both of them, both the film industry and the music industry. So the music industry, as I mentioned, that I had a few gigs of my own. I had a few gigs via Fabrica or via Cairo Celebration Choir, but I don't think I've stuck around long enough to say more about the music scene on that level. But we all know like Egypt is a big hub in the Middle East for music, and actually like I would say it feels to me like it's quite different now. There's way more diversity there, way more younger artists that have a chance in Egypt. And I see a lot of artists actually that have been abroad for years that are now considering going to Egypt and to pursue a career there. So it's something that I didn't even think I would consider at some point, but I actually might consider that.
Do
Um,
you do you think the diversity in Egypt and all the influences you've had has turned you into a multifaceted artist? You speak many languages. How many languages do you speak, Hayat? Like German, English, French, Arabic, all these different languages, and are also a multifaceted artist. You do so much. Where does that all come from?
I guess I'm the person who I think in different phases of my life, I have different interests, and sort of that stream takes me with it. And it's actually one of my biggest struggles at the same time because it feels like sometimes I need to narrow it down and just focus on one. Um, so yeah, I think it's good to have different options in this industry because it's hard to make it and it takes a long time until you make it. And if you're focused on just one niche, on one genre, and you don't make it, that wouldn't be so great. So I think the fact that I record voice on films and games and all of that, which came by a total coincidence, and perform and compose music gives me always something to do and somewhere to grow. The tough times are the times when everything comes together at the same time, and the tough times are also when nothing comes at in certain. So yeah, I had a time in early 2024 where things were like super quiet. But there are times when everything's happening at the same time, and then it feels like there are different personas. So, like the film composer in their studio, in their little cave, is really a different personality than the performer who now has to interact with people and entertain them and look them in the eye and glam up for the night and all of that. So sometimes it becomes a little bit, I am a chameleon, but sometimes you get to a point, I think, where you don't want to be that chameleon anymore and you really want to compartmentalize these things. So now I would say that I'm the person who would rather take a phase of this and take a phase of that rather than putting everything together at the same time. But sometimes it's out of your hands. Like sometimes you get the opportunities together at the same time and you can't say no, especially in a very freelance based profession, where you have to grab every chance when it's there. So I think when I started off, I was more on the classicalish, very classical film music side with like full on orchestra. I think over the years now, I feel like I still love that classical ensemble sound, but I don't want to necessarily have my music be that solely. Like I would always have that ensemble sound, but then mixed with other influences, like having electronic soundscapes and beats. And that's what I'm also trying to bring into my own songs, just to also appeal to a wider audience, and you change and you develop as a person. Like I feel with
Definitely.
some people start out from a more like pop hip side and they go into like a more formal classical side. I think with me was the other way around. It started quite classicalish, and I feel with my personality developing, I'm now more on the bring in all the beats side of things, and you have to go with the stream, I think, and you have to go with the flow, and you have to go with the personality you're moving into rather than forcing yourself to go into the same equation on and on, just to like, hey, that's what I used to do, that's what people are classified me as, so I need to push myself to still love it and still do it. I'm trying to step away from that mentality a little bit and really go by my own intuition and what I feel like doing at the moment. But of course, when a job comes and you need it, you take it.
Exactly. Fabulous. So what was the, let's take a couple of steps back or a couple of years back,
Okay.
7 years back when you decided to apply for the Royal College of Music, the Masters in Composition. What was the inspiration behind that to, leave Cairo and then head
Mhm.
off to London and now you've just lived in, you've been in London ever since?
Yeah, I've been there for a long time. So actually, funny enough, like December, a month ago, would have been 9 years since I took my interview for the Royal College of Music, and I started September 8 years ago. So I've always, I think since I was a kid, I always felt that I would want to live abroad. And I wasn't sure like how long, whether it would be a forever thing or whether it would be a discovery of a few years. And when obviously like in that like 2014 2015 period when I was like so passionate about, still am, but like when it was really at its peak, the passion towards film music and pursuing a career in film music, I was just digging up master's courses, because it was quite a relief for me to see that there are master studies or some diplomas that don't require you to have an undergrad in music. If you have a portfolio, if you have a background in music, you could actually um, go for a master's instead of like starting an undergrad from scratch. So I did sign up for like a film academy in Germany back in 2015, passed the first stage and passed the second stage. The year after, I applied for Royal College of Music, University of Edinburgh, got into Edinburgh, but I didn't get a scholarship. So I had to wait another year. And then I was then considering, because there are two like top courses, like the Royal College of Music's course and the University of Southern California's film music course. Um, but it's usually in the UK, you sign up in September to get into the September the year after. So that was the earliest application. I said, okay, why not? Let's just try Royal College of Music again. The year before, I didn't even pass the first stage. So with another year of experience, it did work out, and it worked out with a full scholarship. So
And
I was
what
like,
was
it's a
the,
sign.
how long were you studying for?
It was a 2 year course, a 2 year full
2 years.
time course.
And what was that like?
It was great. It was amazing. Like I felt at home in the college straight away, especially when you move a country. And at the time, now more and more Arabs have come into the college and studied. But at the time when I did, I think I was the first one in years, apart from Laura Ayub, one of the Ayub sisters. She studied there. So she was finishing her undergrad when I was starting my master's. But generally, there weren't Arabs at all. But everyone is a musician and it's such a universal language, and there are friendships I built in the first week in RCM that until this day are still ongoing. It was challenging obviously in the beginning because um, I was studying with an Emmy nominated composer. His name was Maurizio Malagnini. He wrote the music for BBC's called Midwife, which probably has its last season this year. He was a tough teacher. He was amazing, but like super tough. And Italians are hardcore trained. And he really pushed me to my limits. Like I had many tears coming out of the lessons, and which pushed me even more further. And I'm so glad that I took this 2 year course. In the second year, I studied under Enrica Chandrone, also an amazing orchestrator who really pushed me forward on that side. And yeah, it was tough. Like on the one hand, obviously the environment is amazing and the people there that you get to know, but it's a very high demand course. Like you're composing what, like 5 minutes of music the week that have to be perfect, that you have to show the next week, and you are on a scholarship that doesn't cover I wasn't covering my living costs, so I had to work to the side. So it was a bit of a hassle. Like I remember the last term, I was working two jobs next to the master's, and it was like an average of 3 hours of sleep every night. Took me a while to recover from that. So it was very tough on that level. Um, Sometimes I wish I'd taken the course when I was a little bit solid as a person or as a musician. But yeah, but so many doors opened from these 2 year experiences, um and after that, I to be able to stay in the UK, I had to sign up for what they call now the global talent visa. So you need to gather evidence of you being potentially a pioneer in your field.
There's a lot
Um,
of evidence there. Let's move on to your
at the time,
awards.
there wasn't this much, so it
Oh,
was
really?
really a Jeopardy game,
What about all these awards? I see awards from 2017 onwards. So, what got you the awards? Was it the composition or the singing or the writing of the music?
Sorry, which like there's only one that I can biggish one that I can speak of, the Jerry Goldsmith Awards. That was 2019. So it's an awards where people can submit their works for media, for film, for games. And I submitted actually a song that I'd written for a short film. Like our college, Royal College of Music, used to collaborate with London Film School. So we would score their music, their films. So it was a film I had collaborated on with a with an Indian filmmaker, and he wanted an Arabic song for the film. Like there was a dreamy scene, so I wrote this song Mirage, and I had no expectations at all, and I submitted it to the Jerry Goldsmith Awards, and then it was then nominated in the best song category in all the submissions. So that was amazing. Yeah, that was 2019 already. So yeah, this award came after I signed up for the visa. So the visa, I actually didn't put anything in the award category for the visa application because you had to fill like one of three categories: media, like media recognition, any articles about you, or wider your music being played to a wider audience, and awards. So the award I had back then, it was a game music award from 2016. It was a bit of a too small of a competition to add in there. So instead, I filled up the other categories and it worked out, thankfully. Um,
Yes, and since then, you've also done a lot of traveling. You went to Wales and you've been to Australia. Was that for singing or composition?
uh, Both in a way, I would say mainly singing, but sort of both. Like I'll start with the trip to Australia because that was the first one. So actually, the trip to Australia was via a mutual colleague of ours, Diana Nixon. She's a multitasking woman. She is a singer. She's a pianist. She looks at playwrights. She is a producer for like theater productions. And through, remember back in COVID, we were all working together on a theater on a play, and that's how we got to know Diana. And then Diana and I contacted one another after, and she had a musical on mind that she wanted to make happen. And she thought that by bringing me there and having a concert with my music as a potential composer for that musical, we could raise awareness about the musical. So I went there. It was this time around this time 3 years ago to Australia. So it was summer then, which is winter here. And she made an amazing program where we worked on a concert together. We had an interview with the ABC. I managed to give a lecture on film music. So that was the only film music side of things, a lecture on music for media at the ANU, the Australian National University. And it was an amazing experience. And we hope to do it again. The trip to Wales was for to sing on Carl Jenkins' Stabat Mater. So Stabat Mater is more of a medieval um, text talking about the suffering of the Virgin Mary, and Pergolesi was the first one to make a musical work out of it. Carl Jenkins is more of a modern composer, Welsh composer, so he wrote his Stabat Mater 2008, and there's a few movements where there is a Middle Eastern singer singing in Aramaic and in Arabic. So they found me online and I went there, and it was the first time where I was a soloist with, because I used to be the girl in the choir and there's the orchestra, and it was so nice to be the soloist, having an orchestra accompany me and a choir. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful experience. Um, Yeah, so haven't been on all too many trips. I would love more to happen, but I think the ones that happened were like so rooted in my memory now. They were just amazing experiences.
And how many the languages you sing in? So when you were in Wales, were you singing? Was it a sort of a Celtic sound or language?
No, it wasn't Celtic this one. So the work usually is Stabat Mater is in Latin. So the choir was singing a lot of Latin, but for one, somebody actually, because it speaks about like the Virgin Mary and the whole thing plays in Jerusalem. So there was he brought in the work, he brought Arabic, he brought Aramaic, he brought Hebrew along with the Latin in the choir. So yeah, so you just learn to you listen to the recordings, you learn how to pronounce it. Um, and yeah, it was incredible. It was really incredible.
And what about the project Ethnic Vocal Phrases? That went on for a while, didn't it?
Yeah, that was actually like, oh my goodness, like 5 years ago now. It was during COVID, that project. So, like, for those who are like not aware, like how media composers work nowadays, it's not in the old times where someone sits on the piano. Some people still do that and sketch everything out on the piano and on music sheets. Like a lot of us now use what they call digital audio workstation. Some of you may have heard it, like Logic. Some people have even GarageBand on their phone just to play around with. And so we use as composers now virtual instruments. So our keyboard is plugged to the computer, and we use libraries. We buy libraries that are sampled from real instruments that we can play on the keys, and that this way we can replicate what would have been a real sound. Sometimes when there's a budget, you get to record this live. When there isn't, you try to make these virtual sounds as real as possible. And the same thing applies for voices. There are libraries where you can play voice into your music. Sometimes you can play single notes, but that's not what I did with ethnic vocal phrases. The company was called Sonoscore. It was German, and it was a time during COVID where everyone was at home, and she's a really, really big shot film composer now called Nainita Desai. And she made a directory online on Facebook asking people to put their skill set into a document so that everyone supports one another with jobs over COVID that we can do from home. So I added myself, yes, as a composer, but I added myself as a vocalist for film and games. But the only reel I had there was recording my own voice on my own music. And then somebody contacted me, and he told me a client of mine is looking to build this library with eh, ethnic. I mean, ethnic, we know that term is sort of vague and is very like Western, like it's a Western perspective on what is not Western. But yeah, it is what it is. So they were looking for someone to record Middle Eastern sounding phrases. Some of them I created in Arabic, so I wrote the lyrics for these. I recorded them. I composed the melodies. So yeah, you record the phrase and then you collect the library, you send it over. Obviously, you get feedback back and forth. And then that library is sold as a pack to composers. Once they've bought it with the right license, they can play my voice in any of their music, and it belongs to them. But through having
Fantastic.
done that, some composers would then get back to you and say, yes, we've used your library, but we like that voice, so we want you to record originally on this. So the singing on films and games and all of that came through the library, through someone having.
Fabulous. And recently the Grand Egyptian Museum used your library also, or your voice and your
Yeah.
compositions.
That was incredible, honestly. Like we finished the work in 2022 already, and to see it like come to life all these years later was an amazing experience. So it was actually I worked with a Canadian company that provided the animations for the Grand Egyptian Museum. And through having done that, I've approached like people in the Egyptian community here, initiating the idea of creating an event related to the gem here. It was like the Egyptian Cultural Bureau here in London. So the concert was supposed to actually take place in June. Before then, the whole opening of the gem was postponed.
So your music was broadcast in Egypt at the museum, and you also sang at the British Museum in London. Is
So
that
it
right?
wasn't my music wasn't broadcast no at the opening in Egypt because I like it was Hisham Nazih's music for that opening. My music was rather in like when you go into the museum there are some animation videos and I wrote the music for these. So
Yeah.
you'd hear my like in all of the tracks I added my voice as well so you might hear it floating about there. But then in the Grand Egyptian Museum opening, I sang origin one of the songs that I'd written for the jam. There was a room for one of the priestesses of Hathor, so the piece is called Priestess of Hathor. This one I sang at the gem opening here at the British Museum. I sang a medley of songs I had written for a film called Dandara by Sabrina Al Husseini, which is not out yet by Media Hub, but it will be eventually. So I put these together in a medley, and it was perfect that I already had some ancient Egyptian repertoire. And the Unshudat al Azama, the hymn of greatness by Hisham Nazih, which I've been singing for years. And then we added like a folklore Dalida medley in the end. It was such an incredible experience. So even though the opening was postponed, when it was then postponed, it the event went from the Cultural Bureau then to the British Museum, and the whole thing was put
We have a
together
couple of
so quickly.
we have a couple of audience members that would like you to hear a little bit of it before we go. Is that
Yeah,
possible? Before we go?
sure, but do you have any
Okay.
recordings on the bit on Instagram?
Just a little bit. Okay, just
Sure.
before you go, before you do your little part of the singing, inspiration for young people. What advice would you give people who study music or composition? What should they do when they graduate? Because a lot of artists or creatives, they leave university, they don't know what to do. And
Yeah.
we had this chat a couple of years ago, and you said what I would give them is business advice, how
Yeah.
to manage
Yeah.
themselves
Yeah.
in a business sense, not just to learn the craft. So, what other advice would you give young creatives graduating from masters or bachelors, or because
Yeah.
it's really tough out there, isn't it?
I would say don't wait until you graduate to figure it out. Like start thinking about it before, start making contacts and networking before, because you don't want to graduate and be like, "Oh my goodness, I have to pay my bills now." And or my scholarship is done or my parent support is done or whatever your equation is, and you might just panic and just like take a full-time job in something not related to music and get sucked in that. And I've seen that happen to a few people that I've even studied with. So I would say start brainstorming that from the beginning, start networking from the beginning. If you take a job to the side, which we all needed to do, take a mindless job. Like take a job that is not going to suck all your energy, that is easier to do so that all your thoughts and all your energy is being put into your music and networking.
And
Um,
your last couple of projects have been with Disney and Habibi Baba
blah,
Boom.
blah,
Just give
blah.
us a
Yes.
quick 30 seconds on that, please.
Oh, 30 seconds,
Yeah,
sure.
and then we want to hear
Um,
your voice. That's the main thing.
I'm not prepared for this. My
That's
voice
what
is
it's all
hoarse
about.
today.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was also actually ironically through having sung on ethnic vocal phrases, the company is a company of a collective of composers that make these virtual instrument packs, but also compose for games. So one of them, Steffen Brinkmann, was he was friends with the director of Habibi Baba Boom, a story playing in Germany of a first generation Egyptian, so very relatable. And because none of us had TV series credits, he thought that us coming together, him as a German, me as an Egyptian, for that multicultural story, it would be the great equation. We got the gig. The first few months of the gig, we were always scared we would be fired. And it kept being the release, like we finished the work end of 2023. It kept being postponed for all sorts of political reasons and everything going on in the region. And it finally came out in October of 2025, but sadly only in German speaking countries. But we hope that that will change.
Yeah, because I saw the trailer on your Instagram page. You're speaking German.
Oh yeah, we did like a little video because it was nominated for a best series and a Jupiter Award in Germany. So the voting goes on until end of January. So we made like this little video saying please vote, but at the same time we're gonna start once we have the final approval, putting snippets out on Instagram with because you need all sorts of approvals for these things to release snippets from the series with our music on it. So we picked the best
Fabulous.
cues and we were so excited to share them with you.
Fabulous, Hayat. I can't, thank you enough for being on our podcast. Absolute, pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Multifaceted artist. You give everyone inspiration to do what they want, no matter what the circumstances are.
Thank
And,
you for giving me the chance. I think going through that film strip as well, I think another advice I would give is remember your achievements. We tend to sometimes look at the next goal and neglect completely all we've done or not give ourselves enough credit to all we've done. And your podcast has helped me with that in a time when I needed it. So thank you.
Fabulous. So
Thank
we'll
you.
end the podcast with listening to Hayat Salim's
I'm not
amazing
ready for
voice.
this.
That's fine. We'll
What do you
see you
want me to
soon,
sing?
guys. Oh, the Egyptian, the pharaonic one, if you like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, let me
See you
sing
guys.
the.
You've been listening to Hashem's podcast. We'll see you out with Hayat's amazing voice.
All right.
See you next
So,
time.
okay. Let's sing on Shuzat al Azama. Let's give you a little bit. دعاء نثر نبت دعاء نثر نبت جانت حين توعيت جانت حين توعيت سنج ينسات باغن isjit ef باغن isjit ef sen pech ينسات حنوت آمنت. Sorry, I
Well,
wasn't
thank you so
prepared
much
for
for that.
this.
That was absolutely amazing. I'm
Thank you
sure
so
all the
much.
audience would love the pharaonic sound from Hayat Salim, all the way
Thank
from
you so
London. Thank
much.
you so
Thank
much,
you. Thank
and
you
we'll see
more.
you soon.
See you
Bye.
soon.
Have a good
Bye.
evening.